Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the October 2024 meeting of Safe Silver Spring. My name is Alan Bowser. I'm the chair of Safe Silver Spring. Thank you all for being here this evening. Uh, as usual, we're going to receive comments from our new 3rd District Commander, Jason Cokinos, and his lieutenant, who will discuss public safety developments in the greater Silver Spring area. Uh, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or to use the raise hand button to get recognized. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Commander Cokinos and welcome him to his first meeting of Safe Silver Spring. Welcome, Commander.
Great, thanks. Appreciate you having me, and happy to see everybody. Even virtually here is good. Yeah, I'll start with just a little bit about myself, and then I'll get into some information to share and turn it over to the lieutenants for anything they want to add. And then obviously, we want to be available for questions and specific things that people might want to know. I can talk for a long time about everything, all the different issues, but I'd rather leave some time for people that want to speak specifically to certain things that they want to talk about. Yep, I'm back. I started July down here. I took over for Dave McBain, as you all know. Dave McBain was promoted to assistant chief. He's over our field services bureau up at headquarters. So working down here, the lieutenants are currently still the same. You'll get to speak with two of them. Lieutenant Al Dezenkowski is in New York at a conference tonight. And so Al Dezenkowski handles the Four Corners. It's our Henry sector, the Four Corners area, Hillendale, the Piney Branch corridor, University Boulevard, Long Branch area as part of his responsibility. So I'll be able to speak a little bit about stuff going on over there since he's not here tonight. But yeah, a little about myself. I actually came on the department and started in Silver Spring. It was my first assignment outside of the academy. I worked downtown Silver Spring. From there, I worked over in our Henry sector, which is the Piney Branch, University Boulevard area. And from there, I spent most of my time in special operations or special investigations. So whether it was working on what was our PCAT team, which is essentially like a street crimes unit, uniform street crimes team, up through narcotics, undercover work. I was a canine handler for a period of time, and then got promoted back to sergeant and actually came back to Silver Spring. And my area was White Oak North. So Burtonsville, White Oak, Briggs Cheney, Fairland on that stretch. I was the midnight supervisor. So did a number of different tours as a police executive, from working at headquarters in our management services bureau to the 6th district, which is Gaithersburg. I was a captain. I ran our training and education division for a couple of years, our criminal investigations division. Most recently, for the last couple of years, I ran our special operations division as well. So it's good to come back to Silver Spring, which is essentially home where I started. So I've kind of come full circle, and it's exciting to be down here. I'm very familiar with Silver Spring. Like I said, that's where I've spent chunks of my career. So it's of course, the last time I worked in Silver Spring, the station was on Sligo Avenue. So I left right before the new station opened in White Oak in 2014. So so I feel like having a good understanding of the district and the different problem areas and things of that nature puts me at a little bit of an advantage. I don't have to take as long to get up to speed. So really, it's just spending time with the officers and spending time with the community and hearing what is going on in your neighborhood, what you want from us, how we can serve you better. I have a customer service mindset, kind of a private sector mindset, if you will, where we want customer satisfaction, and that's you all in the community. So some good news to report. I'll just give an overview as the whole police district, and then Greg and Tony can talk specifically if they want to mention anything about their respective areas. And so Tony Galador is on here. He oversees downtown Silver Spring, our George sector, a lot going on down there. And Lieutenant Greg Schmiel is our Ida sector lieutenant, which is White Oak up through Burtonsville. I'll start with some good news, and I'll tell you where the areas of improvement are as we have it right now. Homicides in Silver Spring, we were trending very well. We were 50 and 60% down in homicides, and for those that I'm sure you're aware, 2022, 2023, rough years for Silver Spring, rough years for crime in general. All over Montgomery County, but particularly Silver Spring had a rough patch. That end of 21 into 22. I was in charge of the detectives out of central headquarters at that point. We had shootings, robberies, all that kind of stuff, and the caseload in Silver Spring was definitely fairly heavy in those years. The good news is for 2024 so far compared to last year, which we had some high numbers. Homicides are down. Obviously, we'd love that to be zero. We were trending 50% lower up until we had a little bit of a increase this past month. We had an homicide up in the Ida sector of northern Silver Spring that was domestic related. Then we had 2 homicides in our Long Branch, Piney Branch corridor, which are still under investigation. The burglaries are down 16%, so that's good news. Theft from autos are down 6%. That still remains a persistent crime all over the county, but particular in Silver Spring, car break-ins. I'd like to see them down a little more than that, but there's a little bit of progress there. Stolen cars down 25%. So again, this is all the entire district numbers. Certain areas are seeing more favorable numbers than others. Like downtown Silver Spring, the percentage is actually higher in downtown of stolen cars reduction, car break-in reduction. But then we see other areas where there's slight increases. So particularly around our Piney Branch area and the areas that border Prince George's County, over that way, New Hampshire Avenue. Robberies down 11% district wide. So that's some good news. But the real improvements to discuss are shootings, people actually being shot, down 54%. Carjackings with weapon down 50%. And carjackings by force with no weapon down 60%. So a lot of violent crime, double-digit decreases. We're heading in a very good direction. There's been a lot of initiatives that have been going on by Commander McBain. And then obviously I've continued stuff, was heading in a very good direction under his leadership. We just kept things going through the summer. Usually we see a violent crime spike over the summer. Luckily, we did not have that. So that is good news. But there are some areas that have seen increases. So what happens is when violent crime is decreasing, that allows us the opportunity to focus on other issues. And the issues at hand, most importantly, are retail theft. So retail theft district-wide is up 9%. But downtown Silver Spring particularly, retail theft is up 25%. So we have a big retail theft problem, particularly downtown, but there's other areas affected up on the Cherry Hill Road corridor, Hillendale, the Safeway over there, and some of the CVSs and such along the 29 corridor. Assaults are up, particularly simple assaults are up 83%. A simple assault is, could be a shove, could be a spit on someone, a smack or a punch. It's not a violent felony assault, but it is an assault nonetheless. And we're seeing some trends, and Tony will be able to talk a little bit about what's going on downtown with our shelter, our homeless population, Progress Place. A lot of assaults, both felony and misdemeanor, that are stemming from that population, as well as juvenile crime continues to be a lot of assaults. Our stolen cars that we do have are frequently stolen by juveniles, occupied by juveniles. So we're seeing juvenile crime in our homeless community as well with some of that stuff. The other big issue going on right now, it's increasing more, is theft of vehicle parts. So particularly vehicle airbags and vehicle rims. That is not just a Silver Spring problem. That is a whole regional problem around the DC metropolitan area, Prince George's County, Washington, DC, Montgomery County, up 12%. And that airbag problem is growing. So we're going to be looking at ways to hopefully try to get a handle of that. So so overall things are looking pretty good. We still have a lot of work to do. We're heading in the right direction. We got to spend some time focusing on our theft issues, and we got to spend some time focusing on our quality of life issues. So when violent crime's down, we can then start focusing on some of those smaller things, particularly in White Oak, Northwest Park, downtown Silver Spring, and things of that nature. So the other thing I'll bring up real quick before I turn it over is obviously for those that don't know, we're on Nextdoor. So please feel free to follow us on there. We put out messaging on that. And then I actually am on X, which is formerly Twitter. And you can follow me at MCPD 3D Commander, MCPD 3D Commander on X. I post content that is related specifically to Silver Spring, versus our police department may post information that's more broad or relevant to other parts of the county. I am focusing just on Silver Spring, which some residents have found to be very valuable to be able to have more knowledge specifically on Silver Spring. So thanks for having me. We're going to be doing a bunch of initiatives. And Tony can talk about some of the technology downtown that has helped with some of these crime declines. But we are going to be focusing on retail theft for the holiday season. We're going to be focusing on trying to stem the flow of criminal activity coming from other jurisdictions and victimizing Silver Spring by working the main corridors and some of our partnering with some of our transit partners, such as Metro, to deal with folks that are committing crimes in and around the transit area and try to make that a safer area for people to use as well, now that the red line is back open. So, I'll hang on and I'll talk through whatever anyone wants to talk to, but that's my part, Alan. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. When we talked on the phone, one of the things that we briefly mentioned was an update on the situation in Nolte Park from this past May. I wonder if you could bring us up to date on that.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I identified we need to do a little bit better job of, and we have since, is when there's a violent, traumatic event that takes place in a neighborhood, we need to make sure that after that event, we are coming into the neighborhood in a timely fashion, meeting with folks that live there and sharing what we can share. When I came down to Silver Spring, I heard from obviously Alan, you, and others in the community that felt like they were left without a lot of information after that incident. So I was able to go down and meet with some community members at the park itself. I also shared some information via email and stuff. And then subsequently, unfortunately, we've had 4 additional homicides since my arrival. One at 13th Street, downtown Silver Spring. We made an arrest in that case. We did do some engagement with the affected community right there. And then Long Branch, we had a pretty violent 3-block shootout down there. We did have a big community meeting over at the Long Branch Community Center. And then we just had another case that appears to be a homicide. We're still trying to determine what happened further down on Piney Branch, just along the main road there. But with regards to Nolte Park, so the homicide detectives were working that pretty heavily. We have now made 2 arrests in that case. So that was not a random act of violence. Essentially, there was a dispute amongst folks that were known to each other. Our victims in that homicide were known the offenders and the victims knew each other. There was some type of dispute that took place between that, which resulted in gun violence. They made an arrest early on of one individual, and then were able to take a second individual into custody related to that as well. So bring some closure to that event, but I know it was very troubling when it happened. But I think what we could have done a better job of messaging early on was that it wasn't a random drive-by. It wasn't, something that, folks, when there's a violent crime, there's a difference between a random drive-by or a random violent act against an unknown person versus a violent crime that involves known parties. Not that neither of them are okay, but what happens is when we know that the individuals know each other, there's less of a random risk or threat to the community. So people are like, can I go to the park? Is there going to be additional shootings? Once we identified that this was not a random event, and I think we could have communicated that sooner, to say, hey, the park wasn't the target. The people that happened to be at the park were a target of other individuals that knew each other. So the park is okay to use. It's not a place where these violent acts take place. Often it just happened to be the place where these two individual groups caught up with each other, essentially.
Thank you very much, Commander. That's a very useful update, and we really do appreciate it. I'm one of the people who's taken advantage of reading your tweets, or X's, as they might be called now, and they are very useful for Silver Spring specific information. So thank you for that. And then I'll ask you this question before you turn it over to maybe your lieutenants. One of our members today asked if there was any increase or decrease in crime when the Silver Spring Metro was closed down this summer and there wasn't as much transit access. Were you able to determine whether or not there was more or less bad things happening in the neighborhood?
Yeah, so I think since it's opened back up, I mean, it's Tony's area. I've been paying attention as well. It's one of the reasons why we're going to be running a joint transit detail with some of our initiatives that we're about to roll out over the next 2 months. Is that once the metro opened, we already had theft that was trending upwards, and since the metro's opened, pulling the most recent data, we've seen a few more percentage points increase in retail theft. We also have evidence, at least, that there have been crimes that have taken around downtown that the suspects were seen fleeing back onto the train. So since the metro has opened back up, that just provides one additional kind of avenue of coming to and leaving Silver Spring. So we have seen a little bit of an increase with the red line opening back up, but that's one of the reasons why we're going to start targeting that area with some of our public safety initiatives to try to intercept individuals that may be coming to commit crime or leaving after committing a crime. We can catch them at the metro because we know that is an escape route for some. So I will, and Tony, you chime in. I mean, I don't think that since the metro's opened, we've had this boom that is just so out of control that it is blatantly obvious that the metro is the cause of it. But we do have some cases documented and some small percentage increases that could be attributed to the metro. We know for certain in some cases that the suspects were seen fleeing towards the metro or entering the metro. So it is safe to say that with the train open, it has been used by some criminal element. But I'd also want to say that there is an overwhelming majority of people that are using the metro that are, great people, and they're just commuting and doing a lot of good things. So, when we look at crime, it's a real small percentage of people that are committing the crime. The overwhelming majority of the population are just good people going about their day, and our job is to root out those few, those percent or two that are up to no good. So yeah, that's what I got on the metro. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. So thank you for that. When we spoke on the phone last week, I mean, people might find this of interest. You were talking about being in the, I don't know what you would call it, the control center for the drone. I wonder if you can talk about your experience with the drone program.
Yeah, so actually, I'm going to let Tony talk about that.
Okay.
So Tony, you may or may not know this, but Tony was the initial idea behind that program. I just happened to come into special operations as the director when Tony was there. He told me, "Hey, you should look at this concept. They're doing it out in California." So I read up on it, took a look at it, and said, "Hey, I like that. Let's dig up some more information." Tony started doing a lot of the research, and then ultimately it culminated with a research trip out to California, where we got to see it firsthand, and then we brought it back, and Tony and I got the ball rolling with getting it all stood up. So, but yeah, Tony can talk about a lot that's going on with that if you'd like.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Tony.
Great. Thank you very much for having me and having us again. Really appreciate it. And again, as the captain mentioned, we're very happy with the numbers are trending in the right direction. Alan, to your point, what's driving that? I think there's a bunch of things. I think some of them are regional and national trends. I think locally, I could tell you the council passed legislation in April to close the hookah bars. At the same time, the bars close. As promised and as we discussed when that was being debated and discussed, at the time we were spending a significant amount of man hours in the overnight shifts from midnight to 6 and 7 a.m. Responding to calls for service. As soon as that legislation went into effect, and I mean that weekend, we pulled a lot of the officers that were working the night shifts as additional details and moved them to other areas. So our numbers went down almost immediately. So with that legislation for us has been very, very impactful, and we're very excited and happy that that's helped solve a lot of issues. I think the metro closing certainly did probably help our numbers a little bit. It also created a lot of problems with transportation, as some of you might know that have been trying to travel on Georgia Avenue over the summer. We worked a lot with Metro Transit Police to help the buses get through and ease some of the pain with having our major transportation closed for a few months. So we're glad we're on the backside of that. And then, as the captain mentioned, we've been doing this Drone as First Responder program. I know we've talked about it on here several times. We're actually right at a year, if you could believe it, from when we first started it. We've had a lot of success, and we are very actively talking about being more proactive with releasing some videos to kind of show you guys what we see on our end, how these cases develop, how we're actually hearing your 911 calls in real time in that room and responding with the drone literally several minutes before calls are dispatched in many cases. Just today, I was in the room for a few hours, and someone called in that there was people chasing each other, and it was an assault in progress. We were able to have the drone take off and actually get in the neighborhood and be directly over that scene as the call was being dispatched. So incredibly impactful for us. The other piece of it that we try to do is when we are deploying the drone, depending on the type of call, if we think will be helpful, we'll actually call the complainant and speak with them while officers are being dispatched and while they're responding. So from a customer service perspective, again, as my boss talked about, we have citizens calling 911, relaying an emergency. And when they say, all right, thank you, call us if anything changes, and they hang up the phone, the citizen's phone is now ringing sometimes, and they're speaking with an officer immediately who is in the same room as the drone operator, getting more information, confirming crimes, and providing real-time information to our officers that are responding. So it's been great for us. And just in the last month or so, they expanded to Gaithersburg. They saw what we were doing in Silver Spring and in Wheaton, and they wanted it up there. So the program continues to grow, and we're just working on our end to be a little more proactive with providing videos of some of our success stories. So look for that in the future. We talked a little bit
and
about
Tony, if I might chime in real quick. So we did have a meeting this morning with our video team. We're going to start on the police department YouTube page. There's a playlist for Drone as First Responder. And that is where we're going to start kind of pumping some of these videos. And the intent of the video is to show everyone in the community the diversity of the different types of things that the drone's helping with. You know, whether it's the shoplifting with the businesses, whether we're catching people breaking into cars, you know, whether we're helping officers to have good information to de-escalate situations. I mean, we have flown over 1,500 flights with our drone as first responder. And part of that is in about 16% of those, so 240-ish cases, we have gotten there with the drone first and said, hey, we don't need a police officer to come to this call. So you talk about our staffing crisis. This drone has been able to put, you know, about 500 officers back in service. You know, any given call is at least a 2-officer call. So we're putting a bunch of officers back in service, which allows them to go to other emergencies and engage in other activity. We've also we've located and helped identify to stop and interact with over 300 suspects involved in crimes within in the areas of the drone. So like Tony said, it's getting there so fast that when someone calls 911 and says there's a crime in progress, the drone's there. Our average response time is 70 seconds, so a little bit over a minute. And in downtown Silver Spring, it's even faster because we're located central to downtown. We could be overhead of an emergency in 30 to 40 seconds sometimes. And we're seeing right away what's happening live stream into the operations room. And then we're transmitting that out to the officers and getting them where they need to be. So it's very valuable. The other thing that's coming online, Tony, if you want to talk about, is the MoCo Connect and the Safe Watch cameras, or I don't know if you want to bring that up.
Sure. Yeah, another initiative Captain Nick Paserno is spearheading is MoCo Connect. And what this does is this allows primarily our commercial partners to share their video cameras with us if they want, and they can adjust how often it's sharing and under what conditions. But what this program will do is business communities can share external cameras that can be viewed by officers that are working, and when a call for service happens in that area, we'll be able to watch those cameras in real time, and again, help us respond better to calls and make better decisions. We're very excited about that program, and we have a website. Again, it's called MoCo Connect. You can see on there, it tells you how many cameras we have. You could also register your camera where that won't share it with us, but it lets you know you have a camera. So if we do have a serious crime in that area, we know where to look, and we know who to reach out to that might have a camera nearby that they can check and see if they have anything of value for our investigation. Kind of talk briefly about Progress Place. Officer Hawkins, Nikki Hawkins, has been our champion down there. She works with all the heads of there's several different nonprofits that work at Progress Place. She works with them all. She works with the community members that are very involved, and does an amazing job just building relationships, helping some of the folks get into services, try to divert a lot of people where she can away from the criminal side and more towards the prevention and substance abuse, counseling. And these camps pop up sometimes. She'll be out there with the providers, giving them information, giving them some opportunity, some hope, and really trying to point them in the right direction to prevent it from being a more criminal interaction. So we're over the top excited about how helpful she has been, and all the providers that have worked with her to help really get some people in the right direction and help keep them out of jail and into services, which is really where I think everybody wants us to be headed. And then last but not least, I will mention I just got back myself. I was at the International Association of Chiefs of Police has a big conference every year, and I'm part of a federal program that pays for me to attend this conference. And we had sessions on retail theft trends, co-responder programs, a ton of technology, including speaking with others around the country that are trying to do the drone as first responders we are. And it was great to hear what others are doing, get to learn a lot, share information with other kind of best practices around the country. So appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that and really learn what's working in some other places and see how we can do that here. And that's all I have. I'm happy to take questions when we're done.
Thank you so much. Let me put this question out there. One of the things that we've been concerned about over the last many years is the kind of assistance that MCPD would get from Department of Health and Human Services, the social science experts, I guess the psychological experts who might be dispatched along with the MCPD team to places where there's a mental health crisis, a mental health issue. Can you comment on whether or not there's been any progress made in that area?
Yeah, so I can't speak for HHS or any of those folks. I will tell you there are different pieces of them that work at a progress place that will go out with Officer Hawkins and interact with folks and try to get them into services. So especially when we're seeing these encampments, she'll go out there and meet with them and see if they're open to services and bring some of the providers. The other thing I'll tell you, right around Sligo Avenue, we were having a lot of complaints from the community in that area about people hanging out and substance abuse. And instead of just kind of coming right at the problem with the hammer, we spent several weeks working very hard with our partners at HHS to be out there and offer services. And they set up a tent and had counselors and everything else there, substance abuse specific counselors, to get folks into service. So I think they've stepped up their game a lot. There's still a lot of needs in the community, but they've been working with us and they've been very open and receptive.
Thank you so much for the answer. Yeah,
Jason,
Jacob has raised his hand. Jacob?
Oh, good.
No, that's fine. I defer to Commander Cokinos. I can lag in with some other comments.
Commander?
No, I was just going to tack on to the HHS thing. So I do not want to see encampments downtown. I don't want us to turn into like a Skid Row. So that has been a priority of mine. We've had a couple encampments pop up. I'm happy to say that we've got them taken care of, but we got them taken care of without having to take law enforcement action. So HHS has stepped up along with our urban district partners, Carson downtown and everybody else, that we've been able to jointly approach these encampments and get them cleaned up without it having to be a police enforcement problem. And I'm happy that we did that in a relatively quick manner, because if you allow 1 or 2 or 3 to pop up, next thing you know, you're going to have 10 or 20, and it becomes very problematic. So, I'll say that from my view, the HHS involvement, I'm told, has improved and is increased, which is great. And we've actually had them help us over on Flower Avenue with, there's a restaurant called El Gavilon on Flower Avenue. And there was about 15 or so people that basically took over the rear of this property and set up essentially their own little village back there. And we were able to interact with them, get people services, and we had a successful resolution with cleaning that up over there. And it was a huge part from HHS. So sorry to jump over Jacob.
Jacob, one of our board members, Jacob Newman, is on the call. Want to also welcome our other board members, and Karen Matson and David Karoma, who have joined us this evening. Jacob, do you have anything to add on this issue?
Thanks so much, and appreciate Commander Cokinos buying me an extra couple of minutes here. I'd be on camera and I'd figure out a way to actually correct my name to Newman, not Neiman, if it wasn't bedtime in the Newman household here tonight. So appreciate it. I was just going to say, Alan, I think what you were specifically referring to was the involvement and success of the mobile crisis outreach teams. And I think that both Lieutenant and Commander Cokinos did a great job kind of talking broadly about how it really is a collaborative effort. And so, well, the mobile crisis outreach teams are under the behavioral crisis health services division of HHS. There are also many partners in the services to end and prevent homelessness. And sometimes those, two areas get conflated. Sometimes there are co-occurring issues and sometimes not. But specifically for the mobile crisis outreach teams, one of the limiting or delaying factors in really getting those up and running from a county perspective was the licensure requirements on the mobile crisis outreach, to have a licensed clinical professional in the hiring process, as emerging out of the pandemic. Having said that, I think we are up into 4 or 5 fully staffed teams. I think we have bandwidth to go up to 7. There has been discussion about one specifically dedicated and located in downtown Silver Spring, which is, kind of an ongoing conversation based on the retention and staffing strategies of that. But I'll also note that in tandem, one of the things, to be responsive while the mobile crisis outreach teams, are being fully staffed, was to stand up a peer support model. And, this is something that is known to be best practice kind of in the homeless space, in substance use recovery space, and other places, and something that the county did in partnership with some of those nonprofits who were referenced out of Progress Place, specifically Interfaith Works, was they are the hiring entity. They are the folks who are bringing on those peer support specialists, and so in a very short amount of time, they were able to onboard. I believe it was 2 individuals, and certainly the collective of MCPD, the different HHS members, the different nonprofit members, the urban district have all spoken to kind of the efficacy and the trust that peer support professional has been able to build in a very short amount of time. So just wanted to kind of add some of that context and appreciate the opportunity to speak. I may figure out how to change my name before the end of this call. Who knows?
I fixed it for you
All right. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate it.
because I can do that.
I like that assist. Thank you.
Since I've got both of you on the screen, Tony and Commander, one of my neighbors has asked me to ask you about this. I guess within the last few weeks, there was a high-speed chase that ended on Bonifant Street near Dale Drive. It totaled one of my neighbor's cars. Another car was tossed sideways in the driveway. Originally, we had heard that it was a drunken driver at 10 o'clock in the morning. We later heard that it was 2 teens who had stolen a car from downtown Silver Spring. Do you have any information on that and what happened to the individuals who were involved?
I don't know offhand when exactly was that?
It was around 10 o'clock in the morning. It was a bright sunny day. There was a car, I understand it, with 2 juveniles driving at high speed down Bonifant Street from downtown Silver Spring. They crossed Dale Drive, and then they crashed into a couple of cars that belonging to my neighbors. And we never saw anything on X. We never saw anything from MPD News, so weren't sure what the real story was, and was hoping that you had more information about that.
If somebody knows what day by chance, I can, while we're talking, I can pull up the history for the day, if you will.
Okay, I'll be.
I have not. I don't recall. I wasn't notified. At least I don't recall a chase or anything as of late.
I took some pictures. So I'll look for it while somebody else is talking to the group. But Dan Mayer has raised his hand. Dan, you have a question? Please.
According to one of the neighbors, it happened about a month ago.
All right, Dan's good friends with one of the people whose car was smashed during this. But I'll look up I took some pictures. I was in an Uber going someplace. I snapped some pictures. I will look it up. There was a lot of first responder response on the seat at the time, and so just curious. Let me ask you the sort of broader question. Has anything changed with the treatment of juveniles when they're involved in some kind of incident like this or a violent crime? Part of our conversations over the last couple of years is that kids would be arrested, but they would be discharged almost immediately. And wondering whether or not there's been any sort of change in the treatment for juveniles who do bad things in the neighborhood.
So I do remember one, to answer your question, I do remember, and I'll answer the DJS question. I do remember we did have one pursuit, Tony, that was the Jazz Fest day that went down Wayne Avenue and ultimately ended.
Commander, can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's perfect.
We did have one pursuit that was back on the day of Jazz Fest that went down Wayne Avenue or went over Dale to the Beltway and back around to University Boulevard and Piney Branch where it ended. I don't know if that's the same one, but we did make arrests in that. It was a stolen car. Individuals were also involved in retail theft, and they were adults, actually. And I think there was actually some drugs taken out of the car as well. I'm not sure if that's the same one, but related to juvenile crime, yeah. So I will say that particularly in Baltimore, but other places, the Department of Juvenile Services has been taking a public shellacking, if you will, for their very hands-off approach to youth violent crime. As of October 1st, there was a new, they made some tweaks to the juvenile laws. I don't think it's really still where we want it to be, but it is a step in the right direction with regards to holding juveniles more accountable for these violent crimes. And I will say that ever since a lot of the spotlight's been put on the Department of Juvenile Services, again, particularly with some very violent crime in Baltimore, where the Department of Juvenile Services just, immediately released these kids back to their parents. I have been surprised that recently, in some cases, we've had that the Department of Juvenile Services agreed to hold juveniles and send them over to Cheltenham. We're not talking about kids that are stealing a candy bar. We're talking about armed carjackings, violent robberies, weapons events of the violent nature. So I've seen recently a little bit of behavior change from the agency that makes those decisions. Too early to tell if that's going to be a direction that's going to be more permanent. I hope so. But there has been some minor improvements, I guess I could say.
I appreciate that clarification. Do you want to ask Greg to talk about his district?
Yeah, and Greg can, for those that live up north, Greg can also tell you how beautiful the remodeled Burtonsville Shopping Center is up there. There's some new businesses coming up there. There's a Moby Dick, a Chipotle, a Sprouts Market. We were up there walking around the other day. So if you live up in northern Silver Spring, definitely worth the drive up. But go ahead, Greg.
Hey, everyone. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Lieutenant Greg Schmiel. I'm the Deputy Commander of the 3rd District that oversees the Ida sector, which, as Commander Cokinos said, is basically White Oak all the way up to Burtonsville. I always hate going after the Commander and Lieutenant Gallador because they talk about the drones, and that's cool. And Ida sector, all I really have is problems and issues that we're dealing with. But the major issue and the major thing on my plate right now has to do with the enclave. If anybody lives in the enclave or is familiar with the enclave, it's been brought to our attention that it has basically become a hangout area for the homeless and people that are looking for a place to crash and do drugs or whatever other kind of nefarious activities they want. So the Enclave Tenants Association has been working with the Enclave, and they brought the police department in. They've been sending pictures and things like that. And I can tell you that being over there and seeing the pictures that they're sending, it has gotten pretty awful. People doing drugs in the stairwells, having parties in the laundry rooms, people sleeping in the hallways, just hanging out, trash everywhere. It had really gotten out of control. So actually, Council Member Kristen Mink kind of got a little group together, including County Council and the Enclave management and the Tenants Association and Health and Human Services. I know you guys were asking about our partnership with them. They're involved with this as well. And we're kind of all coming at it from our own different angles to try to work together to clean up the Enclave, which, as y'all know, is basically like a small city on its own, with over 4,000 people residing there. So the police department is now an agent of the property, so we have the ability to go in there and remove people, trespass people, arrest people if they choose to return. We're working closely with the Enclave management to get the building secured, the locks fixed, the cameras up and running, bringing the cameras online with our Fusus system within Montgomery County so that our real-time crime center can actually view those cameras. And we're working in close partnership with the people that live there, actually, encouraging them to call us, speak to our officers, and kind of give them some ideas on how to get into the building and find these people that are causing the problems. So Enclave management has been very, very receptive. They're taking a lot of steps to clean up the building on their end, secure the buildings, things of that nature, bring the cameras up to code and get them working. And then our plan, so that we don't just have to come in there as the police and start doing enforcement action, is we're going to come in and assist Health and Human Services with getting the homeless people and people in need of services, people with mental health issues out of the building, but also getting them placement in different services that they need. So that's really the big thing going on in Ida right now. As Commander Cokinos said, if anybody hasn't been up to Burtonsville Crossing Shopping Center, it has come so far from being the abandoned parking lot that they used to try to have car rallies in. It really is amazing what they've done to revitalize that. We just had a meeting with them, and we are working in partnership with their management and their security to bring them online with our camera systems and partner with them, and also work on the parking issues up there, because they do have a lot of issues with commercial vehicles parking on their property and things of that nature. But it's going to be absolutely incredible, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely go check it out, because they've done a wonderful job. Other than that, I talk every time we're on these meetings about community engagement being such a big part of what we do in Silver Spring, and we are obviously continuing that as well, trying to push officers out into the neighborhoods and into the shopping centers so that they're seen and interacting with the citizens. That continues to be a big push from where I sit. And the only other thing I want to address, oftentimes in these meetings, we talk about all the different crime trends that we're seeing and how our DCAT team is always pretty much the tip of the spear. They're out there pulling guns and drugs out of cars, making arrests. Fortunate for the officers on the DCAT team, but unfortunate for Silver Spring. We had a period where our team was pretty much stripped down to the bare bones, because a lot of those officers that were out doing this amazing work, they got picked up by other specialized units, which is wonderful for them. But our DCAT team has been running with very minimal staffing. We recently hired 3 new people. They are go-getters themselves. They were very proactive patrol officers, so they're settling in, and we're getting that team back up and running. And we expect that in very short order, they're going to be continuing the great work that the DCAT team's been doing. Other than that, that's really all I have from IDA, unless anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I'd ask you about the gun recovery. I know that people ask from time to time about what's the point of traffic stops, and MCPD says that you cover a lot of weapons. I'm wondering, is there an increase, decrease, about the same in terms of number of weapons that you're recovering in the regular course of your work, and if you know what percentage of those guns might be ghost guns?
Well, in the short term, like I said, our DCAT team, who is really the tip of the spear when it comes to the guns, they were kind of decimated with staffing. So in the short term, the numbers may have come down a little bit, but in general, we're still seeing a large number of guns, and I expect to see those numbers continue to increase with the recoveries as our team gets up and running. If you give me a second, look through the numbers. I don't know that I can tell you specifically what numbers are ghost guns. Yeah, no, I have the firearm stats here for the last year. I can tell you that overall, we're trending in a downward pattern with crimes involving firearms, but I don't have the specific number in front of me as to what the ghost guns are.
I got it. I just found it. It's 20 days old. It's from the beginning of October, so they do it on a quarterly. All firearms are covered year to date. So we had in 2022 we had a high of 939. In 2023, 804. Year to date this year, 800. So we're still trending a large amount of firearms being recovered. In particular, the ghost guns, we were averaging 26 in 2020, 26 in 2021, 49 in 2022, 30 in 2023, and year to date we're at 19 for just Silver Spring. So a little bit of a decrease on the privately made firearms. I know that some of the firearms we've gotten recently we have seen, again, some of those ghost guns, but I think a number of them that I'm aware of since I've come down in July have actually been non-ghost guns. Some have had the serial numbers, scratched off and things of that nature. But yeah, the firearms recoveries overall countywide are trending what they were last year. Yeah, traffic stops, proactive enforcement in general, both from our plainclothes and our DCAT teams, do result in a large number of those. In particular, the stat that is related to the 3rd District DCAT team, when they did a review, found that out of one gun was being seized out of every 210 traffic stops made by that unit. So that unit's very effective in recovering and finding firearms.
Thank you very much. It's an issue that comes up all the time, and we know they're trying to do things at the state and the Fed level about manufactured guns. So it's sort of curious in getting an update about that.
The Polymer 80, which is the company that made those, I think DOJ or somebody shut them down. So that and some of the state laws and laws against the ghost guns have had a little bit of an impact in a positive way. I mean, even if you have a dozen these things, these ghost guns, none of them were up to any good. They're being made and sold illegally on the streets. So by taking the company out of circulation that was making them, it's starting to trickle down that less of them are starting to show up.
Thanks. I was trying to help Tony with the date for that, what I was calling high-speed chase. And Dan was right. It was, either Thursday or Friday, September 19th and September 20th. At least that's when I uploaded pictures to my Google Photos drive. So that was the time frame. I've got some pictures of a neighbor's car that was totally destroyed, and just interested in getting some information about that at some point. Let me encourage any of our listening audience, viewing audience, if they have any questions that they want to ask, please jump right in, unmute your mics, and ask any questions that you have. While people think about doing that, Greg, would the drones help where you are? I mean, you talk about a difficult situation and some of the resources not being available. Would the drones help up there?
Yeah, I think absolutely they would. And I know Commander Cokinos and I have spoken about it before. I think that White Oak would be an excellent spot to fly the drones. I mean, obviously, Lockwood and Stort has always been an issue for us, White Oak Shopping Center, and then the Enclave is right across the street. And we have the 3rd District Police Station right there. So, I mean, if we needed to, we could use that roof right there. So I know that's on the commander's radar and something that we're, hoping to push for in the future.
Can you talk a little bit
and we
about?
did. And sorry, Alan. Yeah, I've made a comment to the county executive about that, and most recently he's made remarks in support of expanding the program based on the successes. And I do believe White Oak is on the short list for the county executive in future areas of service.
Yeah, it's been a little disheartening that some of the things that have popped up recently have been, within a mile of the police station up there, over in that community. So the proximity of having a 3rd District station there's isn't reducing things. I guess it helps in your response, but it is curious about that. Greg, I wonder if you can talk about your partnership with Montgomery County. Will they be the park police? Because we've had some reports of some things happening, where the waterfall is, those trails down there, the Northwest Branch Trail between Colesville Road and New Hampshire Avenue. Do you have enough staff between Park Police and MCPD to, monitor some of the things that are going on in the woods over there?
Well, first, reference your question, do we have enough staffing, us and Park Police? I mean, I think that the answer that every department is going to give you is no. I mean, we would love to have twice as many officers as we have, but we're getting the job done with staffing that we have, and we're moving our resources around and adjusting so that we can, combat crime trends as they pop up. With regard to partnership with Park Police, I mean, we work well with them. They're their own entity, so I can't speak to, what their staffing looks like and what their patrolling looks like. I just don't know what they do on a day-to-day basis. I can tell you that oftentimes, if Park Police officers are in the area, they will answer up to back us up, and obviously we will answer up to back them up as well. And when we do come together, 2 different agencies, we work together very well. But I don't know specifically what they're doing in the parks as far as patrolling.
Well, let us know if we can help with some advocacy for that. And because, within the last year, there was a sexual assault on the Northwest Branch Trail just off of Colesville Road, and on the Piney Branch Road side where the Northwest, there's been some problems in the woods there that, I mean, they're criminal problems, right? I mean, shootings, murders, stabbings, and things like that. So it seems like it's an area which is hard to patrol, and nobody's got enough resources there. So it's something I guess we'd like to highlight.
Yeah. Excuse me, may I ask a question, please? I apologize for not raising my hand because I can't figure out where that button is.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's related to staffing that the lieutenant just brought up. I understand from media reports, and I think even MCPD press releases, that the county is down about 15% of a full staffing of police officers. Um, can you speak about the staffing in the three districts in Silver Spring and how they're affected by that?
Commander, I guess that's a question for you.
Yeah, sure. I can chime in. Yeah, so that's about right. I mean, we are authorized for about 1,300 officers. We're down about 200, so that 15% number is accurate. It does impact the third district in particular. So downtown, we have a central business district team. Ideally, we like to have two of those. So we're only down to one because we can't staff the second team right now. We are still a little short on our district community action team. We're short in some of our community service officer positions. We're short in patrol investigations, and our shifts are all operating pretty much at minimum staffing. So I say that just to paint the picture. The reality is we are foot on the gas pedal. To our goal is to try to provide as best we can the same service as if we were fully staffed. Realistically, that's not likely to actually happen in totality, but that's the goal, of course, is to keep working as hard as we can to be more efficient, more effective. There are some things right now because of staffing that aren't quite where I would like them to be. But again, we're trying to get creative and figure out how to get some things done. Unfortunately, a lot of that is being covered on overtime or getting officers that are willing to work overtime and work extra to kind of fill some of these gaps that we have going on. So, yeah, and then Park Police, Alan, the issue is like Lieutenant Schmiel said, they're a different agency. They operate on a different radio channel. They're not even on our same computer system, so we can't see what they're doing and whatnot. They have the ability to switch to our radio and vice versa. We can talk to them, but they do operate independently. I do know that they are aware of the issues at Northwest Branch and Flower Avenue, Urban Park, and things like that. They just attended a joint community meeting we had at Long Branch the other week with Council Vice President Stewart, and Jacob was there and some other folks as well. So, yeah, that's the picture on staffing. The other thing that's taken a hit with staffing is our ability to do some more proactive traffic enforcement with regards to aggressive driving, unsafe driving practices. And a big complaint we get in Silver Spring is parking. And so parking we have one guy assigned to that. I'd like to have more, but we're doing what we can there.
And I just ask you if you might, you talked about dramatic increase in retail theft. I mean, what kinds of things can you do to bring that down?
Yes. So we have a couple different types of retail theft, right? We have our homeless folks that are going in and stealing some things. Those are the people that, if we can interact with them, if we need to charge them, so be it, to get them enrolled in diversion. When we charge someone, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to jail. We partner with the state attorney's office. A lot of times we can help divert people in lieu of jail to treatment services, mental health services, whether it's substance abuse, things of that nature. So some of our retail theft involves our homeless population. Those are the people that we want to get them linked up with service. If we can help to get them in a better place, we hope that will help them, help prevent them from having to take things without paying. Then we have the two other kind of branches. We have organized retail theft crews that are going in. They're going in with the trash bag, right? They're filling up a trash bag of stuff and they're leaving. Generally, they're going to resell those items either on the street or at fences, places, businesses that will buy and stolen property and then resell it. And then obviously our juvenile retail theft crime as well. So the homeless folks, we want to try to help them, divert them. The organized retail theft crews, those are the ones that we want to do heavy enforcement on. We want to arrest them. We want to get them taken up to jail. No freebies. The District of Columbia and some other organizations have taken a lax approach to retail theft, which has contributed to the increase. We want to kind of set more of a tone that that's not welcome here. And again, with our juveniles, that again is not necessarily a go to jail or not. I think we need to look at what's going on with the juvenile. There's some times where we do have to charge them, and there's some times where, particularly if they're local, we can work with our local resources with MCPS to see what's going on in the child's life that we can try to help them with instead of giving them a record. But if it's out of state juveniles, repeat offenders with criminal records, we've been looking to charge them as well. But the biggest thing that we cannot combat retail theft without the equal intensity of the business itself to want to reduce the retail theft. So we have had some progress with retailers wanting to cooperate with us, such as CVS. Safeway is an amazing partner. Safeway does not want to tolerate retail theft. So for us, we're gonna put our limited resources with the businesses that want to take action on this stuff. There's some other businesses, unfortunately, that corporate policies are resulting in a less than desirable approach to retail theft with just it continues to welcome it. So, we're going to try to focus where we can, but it's really as a partnership. We can't do anything unless the business is willing to say that they want something done, because ultimately they are the victim. So we're going to be doing some holiday related enforcement, plain clothes and uniform, working with some of our top businesses that have been victimized that would like to partner with us to take an approach on that.
One of the things that we've talked about with some of your predecessors in the third district is sort of after school programs and things that MCPD can do with the school age population. Is that on your radar screen? Do you have any? There was some talk about the basketball league at White Oak and things like that. Are those kinds of activities on your radar screen for something you might do during your tenure?
Yeah. So, that was the basketball, I think, was you, Greg, right? You were a big part of that up there, and Commander McBain. So there was some initiatives that were done before I got here. It is on my radar to kind of circle back around and start having some more of those community type events. We made it through summer, and we were involved in working with some of our partners at MCPS and Department of Rec. I'd like to start doing some more larger events like that as well. The immediate future is to kind of get a tackle on some of this disorderly quality of life crime and theft and things of that nature, while at the same time starting to cook up some ideas to start interacting on a positive note like we have been with some of our youth and stuff.
We appreciate that answer. Does anybody in the audience have any questions they'd like to ask the commander or the lieutenants? Well, Commander, this is what we do at Safe Silver Spring. Four times a year, we meet with you and your staff, the commander and staff, to hear what's going on and to ask questions. You've been very generous with your time on this evening, and we hope you can join us again in February. Dan just raised his hand. So, Dan, please ask your question.
Do police have equipment in their cruisers that can measure excessive noise in terms of documenting whether an establishment exceeds that? Last Sunday, a particular establishment was so loud, windows started rattling and so forth. And I made it clear to them that sound that exceeds the legal limits that cross the property line, I've been told, is considered a form of trespass, and you can sue them for that. But of course, to be able to document that is another difficulty, because in my case, I had to actually rent the equipment prove my case, but do police cruisers have DB meters, and can they issue citations for that?
So that's actually there's a lot of interesting things I've learned over the years, and one of them is that noise is actually overseen by the Department of Environmental Protection, the air quality and things of that nature. So they have the actual calibrated machines that can come out and detect violations. I know we've been working with Earl Stoddard, Jacob, and some other partners to see how we can get something more specific for downtown Silver Spring, working potentially out of Jacob's area of operations, because right now the citing authority and whatnot lies with Department of Environmental Protection. So the police can come out. We can document a particular event, especially if we come out and say, yep, it definitely seems to be excessively noisy, but we are not issued any type of calibrated equipment to be able to determine exact decibels. We could, document the incident and forward it to environmental protection for follow-up, but they would have to come out with the machine. The only thing that is on the radar for police is they just passed, I believe Council Vice President Stewart and some others passed the ability to pilot automated enforcement of loud vehicles. So noise related to vehicles that are modified or missing mufflers and stuff.
Thank you. In the chat, Emmanuel has a question to ask you. Emmanuel, please unmute and ask your question.
Sure. Thank you, Commander, for your assignment, and congratulations. My name is Emmanuel, and my son is going to college this year, and we had a chance for me to send him into summer camp in 4th District, and they had a great time there. And so is there any way in our 3rd District, is there any program like that? So that means to attract youth and then to facilitate the hiring process and all that stuff. So yeah, that's all I want to know.
No, thank you. Yep, that 4th District summer camp was a very good thing that they did, that was well attended by folks from East County and Wheaton and Silver Spring. Yeah, we're going to be brainstorming what initiatives we can do, particularly after school or next summer, and that's definitely a thing that's worth exploring, expanding. The police department does a number of summer camps. They did the Wheaton camp, and then they do another camp out of our school safety officer program. So it's definitely something that works. And if we can expand it, that's definitely not a bad thing. So we'll definitely look at it. Appreciate the feedback.
So, Commander, please let us know if we can provide any advocacy in this area. It's budget time, and the county executive and the staff are soliciting recommendations for budget priorities for the next fiscal year. In addition to what we traditionally do is recommend more personnel resources for MCPD. We'd like to be a partner and help contribute to some of these after school activities. The basketball that they had in the White Oak and Long Branch area. I know former Chief Jones was really interested in trying to energize the Police Athletic League. And so I think there's lots of opportunities there for more support for what MCPD wants to do in that area. We'd love to help. So I was thanking you for being on our your inaugural Zoom with Safe Silver Spring. Please thank all of your officers for what they do on our behalf, and please reach out to us if we can spread any information in the community, and look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, definitely. And I will share info as we get it. And yeah, Police Athletic League is valuable. There's a lot of ideas cooking around. Basically, Chief Yamada has taken over as of July 1st, and I know he's got some ideas. And so I look forward to throughout the next number of months into next year, kind of taking this direction under his leadership and seeing what we can expand to improve community engagement and particularly youth as well. We've talked about that before. He was my boss before he became chief, when he was an assistant chief, and we've talked extensively about the need for more youth engagement and positive sports and programs and stuff. So we look forward to hopefully trying to get some of that going.
Yeah, and please involve the community in that. I mean, we'd like to be participants in the process, recommending new programs in areas where it might be helpful. But overall, I can speak for most of the people on the call. I think we're very pleased with the progress. It's been a marked change over the last couple of years coming out of the pandemic, and we're really impressed with the drone program and the 1,000 flights and the apprehensions that it's helped to assist. So thank you guys for what you do, and thank you for joining us this Thursday evening.
Yep, I appreciate it. And the last thing I'll say is we welcome any suggestions and feedback, and then also at the same time, share that as well with your local council member, county executive, things of that nature, so they know how important public safety is to you as well. So appreciate your time, everybody.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Good night. Thanks, Alan.